Okay, that's not for me to. Oh, we're gonna wait a minute. We can't start recording until there's more here telling us about how to develop faith. All these three parshas we talked about, Shmos, Vaerah, and Bo, are all very much faith-based. And it seems like we said last week, it's not for naught. These are also the weeks that are called the Shovavim. That's Shovavim stands for Shmos, Vaerah, Bo, B'Shalach. And this year there's even 2 extra weeks because it's it's a Iber year, it's a leap year. Those 8 weeks where we're plunged into darkness, the winter, and in Toronto there's a 4-letter word. It starts with an S and ends with a W. That it's when you're plunged into darkness like this, you need the faith, and I don't think it's coincidental that these parshas show up this particular week. These weeks when we need emunah more than usual, and the situation in the world, and there's so many people sick, lo aleinu, and there's so many difficulties in life. We need to be able to have emunah to help us in our life. Okay, so let's ask. This week I only came up with 3 questions. I'm sparing you. We'll save the 4th till Pesach, and then we hopefully have some amazing, life-changing ideas to reinforce in ourselves. Next week, I hope, even though this week had 8 of the 10 plagues in it, next week I hope to show you there's many different meforshim that bring up the theme behind all the, we're going to mention one briefly today, but there's many themes behind all the plagues. But 8 out of 10 of the makas are in this week's parsha, and the last 2 are in next week's parsha, and we'll take them up in much more detail. But there's a few questions that I wanted to take up with you that I felt we could address. Okay, so here we go. So question number 1, we're told that that the Bnei Israel were not able to listen to Moshe. Moshe came to Bnei Israel and he told them, Paro, the work increased. Last week's parsha, he went to Bnei Israel. They believed in Moshe. He went with that infusion to Paro, and he went to Paro, and Paro only made the work harder. So he goes back to Bnei Israel, below Yachlu. They couldn't listen to Moshe. They weren't able to listen to Moshe because they had kotzer ruach. The Rashi tells us it's like their breathing became, like tight. And avoda kasha, they had so much hard work, they couldn't listen to Moshe. This is very famous Rashi. In fact, I've talked about this last year, but we're going to take a different spin this year. The question is, they couldn't listen to Moshe. They couldn't accept his words. They couldn't believe in him this time because they had that shortness of breath and they had tremendous work. So Rashi tells us 2 things. One thing Rashi tells us is that this is one of the this is one of the 10 kal v'chomers mentioned in the Torah. We mentioned a little bit last year. Kal v'chomer means a fortiori argument. It's one of the types of reasoning in the Torah and in general. Like, if you want to talk logical reasoning, there's 10 different types. One type, kal v'chomer, in the Torah, there's 10 examples of kal v'chomer. Kal v'chomer means, like, for example, if I can't make myself look young, then how much more so can't a 100-year-old person make themselves look young? Or if I can't, if whatever, it's always a kal v'chomer means if I can't do something, how much more so a person that has more difficulty with this problem. Okay, so the kal v'chomer is Moshe complains to Hashem. He says, if Bnei Israel aren't listening to me, how can Paro listen to me? And a lot of people have big questions. What's the kal v'chomer here? There's no comparison. The Jewish people are bogged down. Rashi himself says because of work and because they can't breathe, it's so difficult. And Paro has none of the above. So where's the kal v'chomer? We're going to be exploring that in more detail. Another question is, it says they had kotzer ruach and avodah kasha. They had this, they were constrained and they had all this heavy work piled upon them. Now they had to make their own bricks. Shouldn't that be the reason that they want to hear about the geula? They couldn't hear it said because of the hard work. Wouldn't somebody who's steeped in work, all of a sudden they say, we're liberated. We're liberated now. I mean, you know, those were the words every prisoner is waiting to hear, that they're finally going to be liberated. Don't they want to hear those words? What do you mean they couldn't hear it because of Avodah Kasha? Adarabba, as they say in Aramaic. Even more so, they would want to hear these words because of Avodah Kasha. They'd want to hear that the Geula is here, wouldn't they? So why aren't they listening? And another question, third question is, I do have 4 questions, sorry. They listened before in previous parak. Why aren't they listening now? It says because of Avodah Kasha. What's the difference? They believed in Moshe before, but now they don't believe. And the last question is the Rashi in the beginning of this week's Parsha, that Moshe Rabbeinu, when he sees the Jews have even more work than before, he says these impassioned words, Lama hariosa la'am hazeh, lama zeh shilachtani. He complains, so to speak, to Hashem, and he says, why are you making it so much harder for the Jewish people? Why did you send me? He's complaining. Moshe Rabbeinu, we think that's the most selfless thing to say. And what does Hashem answer him? You know, Atasira, you know, I appeared to the Avos, Bekel Shakai. I appeared to the Avos, and they didn't see, when they went through tribulations, they didn't see solutions. They didn't complain. Why are you complaining? But Moshe Rabbeinu was not complaining for himself. He gave the examples given, like the example given in the Medrash is Avram Avinu didn't complain about the Akedah. Well, it's his own son. Moshe Rabbeinu is not complaining for himself. He's complaining for others. What's so bad about that complaint to Hashem that some people say was like one of the steps that led to Moshe Rabbeinu not being allowed to go into Eretz Yisrael? We've said different explanations in the past. I have a little bit different to say this year. Okay, so those are our questions, ladies. And now let us explore, get into some of these amazing, amazing answers. Okay, in this week's Parsha, we're given a one-time spectacle. Hashem operates, this is the foundational element of our religion, that Hashem does not give miracles all the time. I mean, not major ones. We've had a lot of miracles in our lives. All of us have witnessed the 6-day war, for example, many other such things that are modern miracles, but not to the extent with the Makos and Yetzias Mitzrayim. Why do we get such extensive, why do we get such extensive, all these things, spectacles going on? This is the thing we're supposed to internalize versus other religions. In other religions, you're told if you got lahavdil, if you don't believe, you're going you know where, right? In our religion is based on Nesorah, based on tradition. Emunah is based on, I believe that there were 2.5 million people standing around Har Sinai. That's the basis of my Emunah. I believe it was passed down father to son, mother to daughter, father to daughter, mother to son, whatever. It was passed down. There were 10 miracles. There were 10 makos. It was passed down that there were tremendous things that happened to the Jewish people. And because of all that happening, I believe with full faith that I have to just trust Hashem in my different hard moments. But I have all that behind me, of all those memories behind me to help me internalize that there is a God, that there is someone that's going to save me and that's going to help me. That's why, you're supposed to be Saimech Geula L'Tfila. The halacha is now, our Rav here, Rabbi Lowy, does not paskin. You have to say this, but I know Rav Scheinberg paskins for a woman, rather than saying the last 2 paragraphs of Shema, if she lacks time, it's better that she say Emes V'Yatziv. She's supposed to say all the paragraphs after the Shemona Esrei, after Shema rather, because those talk about the Geula, and when you think about the Geula, it'll give you more Amunah to daven in your Shemona Esrei. You're talking about how Hashem, Ezra Savoseinu Hayam Me'olam, Magenu Mashiach Lahem. When we think, look what Hashem did in the past, He could do it again today. It gives us more strength. That's what our whole Amunah is based on. It's not on, do you believe at this moment? A person has to work on it. It's not going to come natural. Amunah is not like breathing. It's not like breathing. Amunah takes work because by nature, a person is not necessarily a mammon, but there's tremendous opportunities in the world for us to internalize our Amunah. And one of them is Yetzias Mitzrayim. Rav Chaska Levenstein Zatzal was known as the pillar of Amunah in the last generation. He was, it's a great book, Rav Chatzkel, if you can get it, a biography, it's one of my top 10. Real, wow, what a human being. There's not too many like that around the world. Any case, he was known, he shepherded the whole Mir Yeshiva through Shanghai and through the war years, always with full amuna. How did he do it? When people weren't looking in his room, he used to reenact Kriyas Yamsuf. He would take chairs and walk through them and read all the psukim. The Chavetz Chaim would do similar actions too, to reinforce that these things have happened. It's a one-time thing, but it's up to us. It doesn't have to be for us that we have to reinforce these particular events, but we have to reinforce how Shem was with me in the past and how he was with our forefathers and how many times we've survived as a klal, and that should take us into the future for the things we're dealing with today, and there are many to deal with. Any case, so these one-time events to show us that Hashem is in control and no other force should we have to reckon with. The Gur Aryeh was a parish on, that's the Maral, who's a parish on Rashi. You know, we say that there, in the Haggadah of Pesach, we say there's 3 signs of the Geula. Datzach, Adash, Ba'achav, right? You ever hear that? Like mnemonics to help us remember the 10 plagues. We say Dam Tzvardei Kinim is Datzach, Adash is Arov, Dever Shchin, and then Ba'achav is Barad Arba Choshech Makas B'choros. Anyways, we're going to go into a lot more of these next week, how all the commentaries say these are groupings. These are groupings. It's not just for naught that he decided to have this mnemonic. These are particular groupings, and I'll just give one right now. Revolba brings it down, Shlit as itself. So we are going to mention his from the Gur Aryeh. It says like by the way, every plague has a trend. We're probably going to reinforce this next week just because we're going to all forget by next week. What's it called? Every plague that happened always has 2 warnings. You'll see in the Psukim, Moshe goes to Hashem, just like you're supposed to warn somebody lest they commit a sin. We are obligated, Torah, that's the only time you could punish someone. If they were warned twice and there's 2 witnesses, then they deserve capital punishment by the Torah. So it's very rare to have capital punishment. I see it's very sunny in Montecito right now. Any case, so just making a joke. Anyway, so if you're going to warn somebody about that, what you say the first grouping, there was 2 with warnings, and the third one there's already no warning anymore. That's Moshe came to Paro 3 times, and then the third time there's not even a warning. Now what happens is the first group proved Ani Hashem, that God exists. That's what the Maral says. Even though those 3 plagues to some degree the magicians, the sorcerers were able to duplicate. The next group, the Aro, Dever, and Shchin, it says, Ani Hashem b'kerev haaretz. This shows Hashem's hashgacha pratis, like we spoke about last week, a deeper explanation of hashgacha pratis, that it shows that I'm not just Hashem sitting up in the sky, but I'm with you, whatever you're doing. I'm with you when you're putting on your makeup. I'm with you when you're walking down the street. I'm with you when somebody screams at you. In fact, I brought that person to scream at you, and that's b'kerev haaretz. And also in that one, the Jews did not experience any type of anything. And then Ba'achav, Ein Kamoni B'chol Haaretz, that grouping is, these were plagues that the world never saw before. There was like nothing like them. Like for example, Barad, hail, was 2 opposite forces of fire and water that usually never can coexist, and they coexisted. And it's interesting, even the way it was stopped was interesting. Moshe Rabbeinu, when Paro said, okay, davening should go away, the moment Moshe started davening, they stopped in midair, the Barad. So this is an idea to show that there's no force in the world, even Dr. Fauci, that can do what Hashem can do. No one can do what Hashem can do. Let's give some other examples. And that's really, that's an interesting lesson, just as an aside about the Barad I want to mention. These are asides, little bitsy lessons, but they're important lessons. How when somebody tells us to do something, you should do it right away. So to speak, Moshe was the master of ceremonies. Hashem let him take control. As soon as he davened, but they say the way he davened, the Midrashim say, was with his whole heart. He poured out his heart like it was life and death, which it was for the Jewish people. And then Hashem would stop the plague or start the plague, given Moshe's tefillah. It was all dependent on tefillah. once Moshe davened, we hear he davened that it should stop. Hashem was illustrating that if you are really sincere in helping somebody else, do it right away. Stops in midair. We have the bard sitting there suspended in midair to teach us that, don't wait. So Hashem didn't wait. He said, stop. It was in midair. He didn't say, let's just wait till this round falls down. He did it immediately. Also, the power of tefillah. I wanted to mention, I forgot this because I just looked at my notes just now, but in the first grouping, Sardeya, which is interesting, even those were spectacular, all the first three, even though it shows there's Hashem, maybe it doesn't show that they're weird because they, to some degree, could duplicate. I don't know if you could totally make it Sardeya. I guess you can. You could graft and they clone sheep and do things like that. They still can't do too much else. But in any case, they had, the Svardeya was enormous. Like usually, Revolba tells us that usually frogs are afraid of people. They see a human being, they start, hopping away or whatever they do. What is the thing that they do? They do their squats there. Whatever it is, they run away. In this case, they went into people. They were croaking from people's stomachs. They were inside people's digestive tracts. They said, can you imagine the scene? Paro standing in his court and all you hear is croaking everywhere. I feel that's what it's like sometimes when I sing, but that's beside the point. So that's it, Svardeya. Now we find another one that's really interesting in the parsha is the what's it called? Is the again in the Barad, which was really unusual. Barad was the only plague, the plague of hail was unique in that Hashem said that he told the Egyptians, you have an option. Remember there were 6 plagues previous. You have an option, bring your cattle into your house and you thus will be saved. And there were some Egyptians that were terrified enough that did so, but there were many that didn't. We're going to explore that, why they didn't, but that was unusual. And you could have had control over your livestock if you would have obeyed Hashem's thing. By Barad, Paro screams out to Hashem. This is the first time he says, after 6 plagues, he says, V'chatasi hapam. This time I've sinned. And chait usually means by accident. This also shows the attitude, what we consider a Russian. It should behoove us to have some thought. A person should, think to themselves, really analyze themselves and not always think they're self-righteous. In our generation, we're usually the opposite. But if a person does think they're self-righteous, I heard a word from a Victor Miller. He mentions that a lot of times people think there are such things as bad midos, but they don't understand how deep it exists within themselves. People are very big at saying, yes, there's kas, there's gaiva, there's this, I know. I'm just I have a little bit of a problem, So Paro had it across the board. Sometimes we just have to, a tzaddik is someone that is afraid that maybe what they're doing requires a little bit more analysis. Okay, so those are just a few little pointers, examples of some of the makos and the trends that they showed. But let's take some broader topics. Okay, so again, we're going to delve a little deeper again into internalizing emunah and how we can do it. The Eitz HaChaim, Rav Chaim Mintz, this again, Rivka Shavsov gave me these sperm and I wanted to make use of them. So I wanted to just thank her again for the use of these sperm. The Rav Chaim Mintz Shlita tells us that really any one makkah could have been enough for Mitzrayim. We didn't need to have 10, right? And each one was extremely different to teach us all kinds of lessons. But for the Bnei Israel, the makos served. The reason there's so many different ways and so many different things going on is for us to internalize emunah. And just think of it. I just wanted to bring in my own idea here. Just go to a garden, or in Toronto we have this thing. What was it called? I haven't been to it for a million years. Allen Gardens. It's an indoor thing where unfortunately not such great people hang out there. But they have gorgeous different amounts of little indoor, like these indoor gardens. They have one in Niagara Falls that's very beautiful. Inside of these greenhouses, you see the myriad, how flowers can be shaped in so many different ways, the petals, the shape, how they're so symmetrical, unbelievable. Rabbi Victor Miller once said, this is in Slobodka, so I don't know how many myriad of flowers they had in Slobodka. You know, in the middle of Russia, it's not like, you know, it's not like tropical land over there. He said he felt he came close to Ruach HaKodesh by looking at a flower for a half an hour, by contemplating a flower. Now, it's nowhere near probably the Makkas, I'm sure. That was such a scale, like, wow, you know, but we do have these opportunities, the brilliance in every fruit that we eat. Everything we have, we can really study and think of the intricacies. But these were all signs for Bnei Israel to internalize Emunah. That's why we say, Marabu Masecha Hashem. How great, how numerous are your deeds, Hashem. Think of the multitude of colors and sounds. You know, just go to any paint department. See, you can how many shades of beige there are. You know, it's unbelievable, you know. Kulam b'chachma sisa. You did everything with such wisdom. And that was the big blast of the Makkas, but we're supposed to do it in our own little way. The Gemara in Yerushalmi Kedushin tells us, Asid Adam litain din b'lifnei hamakom. A person is in the future going to have to give testimony before Hashem, al kol machol sharo einav, about every food that he saw, below ta'am mimenu, and he didn't taste from it. Because a person is supposed to enjoy to some degree everything. You can't let it rule over you, but you're supposed to, could be your connection to Hashem. We're supposed to say, look at the other beautiful thing that Hashem created. The Mesilas Yesharim Perek attests that everything in this world was given to us as a potential to strengthen and utilize our emunah. And Rav Mintz concludes, he says, you know, men have more of an opportunity of saying 100 brachas a day, because there's many different ways and different times of a day we can utilize those things to get closer to Hashem. We maybe don't say exactly 100, but whatever we do say, we should try to use whatever we have in our life as a vehicle to get us closer to Hashem. Now, sometimes there's hardships. And a lot of people are going through hardships. There's so many, you hear every day, you're hearing more and more horror stories. And in one way, that's what technology has done. It's brought us more horror stories than ever. In minutes, you know, that's not always so good. And especially if you see good people are suffering, see like you keep getting the emails from the Kupat Ha'ir and Bada Rabbanim and everything about all the assignment and almanas. And it's like enough, you know. And a lot of times people feel this is not fair. It's not fair. And our forefathers went through many things when they suffered. We have an eighth of those, as Rav Chaim Mintz, and how to accept Yisurim. He said, if we feel that this world is only a temporary one, if we feel that this world is a temporary world, then it's easier to go through things. Like you said, like a person will take elective surgery if they know this is going to save them from a lot of pain in the future. People undergo things. They go through sleepless nights to produce whatever it is. You know, if you knew tomorrow you're picking up your lottery winnings, so you don't sleep so well tonight. So what? It's nothing in comparison to what you're about to win. But the same thing is, you know, a person should feel if they have to go through something, they have to realize this world is only a temporary entranceway to the world to come. And how much do Yisurim clear up the things that we need to clear? And we have to know that it says in Parshas Eikev, "V'yadata imuvavecha ki kasher yaser ishus beno Hashem Elokecha miasrecha." It says in Parshas Eikev, a person has to know with their hearts. This is an obligation of the Torah. Just like a person would punish their son, that's how Hashem punishes you. And he mentions that's in the Smag. That's one of the people that classifies the 613 commandments. It's either Aseh Yud Zayin or the Smak. It's a different Sefer Mitzvahs Cotton. Aseh Hey. They consider it a mitzvah Aseh from the Torah to think that the Din Shemayim is that everything I have to go through is for my benefit. You get a mitzvah Aseh every time you ponder this and internalize this concept that everything you were given is to help you internalize that things are for your good. So albeit Moshe Rabbeinu, even though Moshe Rabbeinu was thinking of Yener, he was thinking of other people. And the forefathers, they didn't complain at all. And Moshe also didn't complain at all when it was about himself. He complained because he just couldn't bear it. He loved, he cared so much about it. Vayar b'sivlo sam, he cared about it, other people. That phrase, lama hare osa, why did you give evil? That was not appropriate to Hashem. That on his level, he was punished for it. Now, how many times do we catch? But we should try to minimize. We should try to keep within our spectrum. We should keep memorizing the fact that everything God does is for the good. And remember that he said, the reason why it's so hard for us is we're surrounded by olam haba, olam hazeh. We're supposed to think everything is done. There's like Hashem running this whole thing, even though it's all dark around us. Hashem's running the whole show, and it's all for olam haba. And all this, we're going to look back at it. We're going to say, oh, you took this terrible sin off of me, and you're allowing me to go to olam haba because of my sin, because of my yisurim. We'd be thrilled. In this world, we just look in terms of, are you happy? Are you sad? Are you lonely? Are you miserable? That's how we tend to look at things. Now, of course, we're not supposed to look at this attitude to other people. Other people, we're supposed to feel for them, like Moshe Rabbeinu did. We're supposed to want their every physical need to be met. But for ourselves, we have to turn on the other eye, turn on the other channel, and start thinking, Hashem, this is not the real world. I remember I always get mixed up between the two, but they were very similar. Not Lahavdil at all. The two great Rebbitzins in our century. We have Rebbitzin Hannah Perel Cutler. I think she used to call this world the Narish Aveltala, the foolish world. She and her husband were always supposed to, always talking like that to remind themselves how, that's why a lot of people don't try to have too much gashmias in their life, because they feel distraction. It makes me forget what I'm in the world for. And, so what if this broke and this is filthy and that's a mess and my husband always leaves his shoes all over the place. This is a temporary world. We're supposed to remind ourselves this. And Rebbitzin Steinman, Zichrono Livracha, used to say, a kleine Weltele. This is a small little world. And she and Rav Steinman always would talk about upstairs, always talked about upstairs. That we're preparing for upstairs. We forget these terms. These are things, basis for our religion. But we get involved with the here and now, and this one insulted me, and that one did this, and this one did that, and I'm upset about this, and I'm upset about that. But we forget that people are willing to suffer in this world, for bigger things. If we know that it's all for our benefit, kasher yaser ish espino, kach Hashem elokecha miasreka. If we look at the world this way, then we're able to go through much more. Now, the Chayvus Levavos says that, I'm sorry, not Chayvus, sorry. I did different, I was writing to myself, I wrote Ches Hey, which means Chesh Ben HaNefesh, but I thought it was Chayvus Levavos this time. He says, Rav Mintz, that we should realize when we get punishment, what can we do? We should say, Hashem is telling me to make a Cheshbon HaNefesh. Hashem is telling me I have to check my deeds. I have to think about what I'm doing. That's what I have to do. When I'm going through this, I have to think about, what is Hashem telling me? What does he want to tell me? That's what I have to pause and think that when I go through problems. Now, we don't always know what Hashem's telling me. I mean, the stories about Rav Moshe Feinstein once bumped his head, and he said it's because when he was a younger man, there was somebody he didn't think of or something like that. Or whatever, I don't know. I don't think we're on that madrega, but we should know it's time to make a cheshbon nefesh. Not directly, don't try. We can't always correlate the exact sin. We probably do too many, at least I do, too many in the course of a day, where I could sit there and say, this sin is for this and this, and this punishment is for that. We can't do that. But we can say, what in general could I fix? What can I fix? There's if that is for our good, that's great news to know that, if everything would be perfect, we know ourselves that people who have had easier lives, if there are any, there are not too many of those, but the people that have had easier lives often have a harder time going through suffering. They also have a harder time understanding other people, that being delicate for other people, thinking of others. There's a lot of bad midos can occur when a person has been spoiled their whole life. We know that. So whenever we get another kick in the shins, we have to remind ourselves that there is a purpose. And often the purpose is, now how can I improve from this? And we automatically sometimes do. People start looking at, I see the world differently after I've been on the other side of the fence. You see what's important. Whereas a person not suffering gets all caught up in the here and now and the fun, and they forget that there's a deeper reason that we're here. So that's the first reason why we have Yisurim. Even if we have Yisurim of other people, that other people suffer. It says in the Gemara Brachas Samach Gimel, Ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu mevi puranios al ha'olam ela b'shvil Yisrael. It says in the Gemara Brachas that God only brings misfortune to the world for the Jewish people. In other words, you hear about what's it called? Typhoon. What are those things called? We had a few years ago, tsunamis. You have tsunami in ancient, off in Indonesia where most of the people are idolaters. It's for us. It's something that's supposed to move us to do tshuva. Now, interesting, he gives a different spin on it, Rabbi Mintz. He says, we should know that everything in the world is to teach us something. We're all here to learn from the good and from the bad. But he says, really, why is this so? And deeper explanation. He says, usually, big sins are if a person has sinned greatly, like some of the other nations of the world, either they're idolaters or they've hurt the Jewish people in some way, they should not be punished in this world. They should be punished in the next world, because that's where the punishment is infinite. If you get punished in this world, it helps mitigate for the world to come. We should, that means we're going to get a better Gan Eden when we have to go through things. So why should these people suffer at all? They suffer, so we should learn from them. The whole purpose, because otherwise they should not suffer at all. And we do see this. What happened to Hillary Clinton? Garnished. All these people, that there's so many wicked people, barely had anything go wrong for them in this world, so to speak. And that's because there's a bigger barbecue waiting for them in the world to come. And it's a big surprise. Anyways, now, but if we find that so that's another idea. So we suffer to make a cheshbon hanefesh. We suffer because Hashem wants to teach us something. And when the world suffers, that's even though they deserve not to suffer in this world, really, that it's a good sign. When you suffer in this world, that means it's taking away from infinite suffering, which is far worse. Anyways, there's sometimes people give up emunah when they're suffering. It's very hard. Either the emunah of themselves, God forbid, or the suffering of themselves, God forbid, or the suffering of the community, God forbid. But there's a cheshbon. It says in the Gemara Shabbos, "Ein misa below chet." There's no death without sin. Ve'ein yisurin b'li avon. And there's no suffering without sin. Now, it doesn't mean the people that suffer the most are the biggest sinners. We see it's the opposite. The biggest sinners are going off more scot-free than others. People that have some type of suffering, it means that Hashem is particularly zeroing in on them. He loves them, and that's why he's giving them direction. But we should know that what we understand in this world, and the whole purpose of our whole life, is to go deeper and deeper into faith. The relationship we have to make is with Hashem and no one else. That's who we have to make a relationship with throughout our whole lives. And sometimes Hashem gives us a pause that something's wrong today. We should be focusing on a relationship with Hashem in order that we don't forget what we're here in the world for, because it's a temporary world. Things go quite fast before you know it. And we're here to try to amass as much as we can in spiritual points. But in any case, we know that it's interesting, it says that a person that has no faith in God, and apikoros, has no chelek olam haba. There's no portion in the world to come. You know why he doesn't have portion in the world to come? Says Rabbi Mintz, not because it's a punishment, because the whole olam haba is a relationship with Hashem. The relationship we make in this world is a relationship we're going to have with Hashem in the next. So that's why we want to cultivate that closeness that we can in this world. He's just waiting for us. And to the degree that we have that relationship, to that degree, we will have it in the world to come. Well, I don't remember who says this. This is brought from someone else. I remember who says this. I'm sorry. This part, I forgot to write down the source. It's either I'm guessing Rav Nassim Bachvogel, or it could be the Sifsei Chaim. I don't know. But anyways, I'll have to check on that. But in any case, he brings on a pasuk from Yirmiyahu Beis Chafhei. In Yirmiyahu, background music. In Yirmiyahu Chaf Beis Hey, Beis Chafhei, we're told the famous pasuk we say on Rosh Hashanah. Kayama Hashem, Zacharti lach chesed niyurayach. Here Hashem has spoken. I remember you. Lechtech acharai b'midbar be'eretz lo zerua. I remember your emunah in your early days when you walked after me in a land that wasn't planted. Right? It talks about Hashem loves us. Ben Yakir li Ephraim. I love you, Jewish people. I love you so much. You went in a midbar that wasn't planted. You didn't even know where you were going. You followed me. But people don't realize, says whoever this was that I forgot the source, he says, we don't realize the end of that parak in Yirmiyahu. Later on, in that same parak, Yirmiyahu says all about the Churban. He prophesizes the destruction of the temple, the worst suffering. They say, by the way, the suffering during the Churban, a bigger percentage of the Jewish people was lost during each Churban than during the Holocaust. 4/5 of the Jewish people died during each Churban Beis Hamikdash. Well, Elenu, they should all have a look at Gan Eden. But the point is that here, why did Hashem preface it with all this love and juice? Because that is love too. We have to know it's love. We don't understand it, but it's love. Why the Kruvim were facing each other when the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. Love. When we suffer, it's love. And during these suffering parshas of the Mitzrayim, then Hashem brings all of a sudden the Geula slowly with the Makkos and everything, but all Yisurim are for our good, because Hashem really loves us. Temporary Olam Hazeh, preparing us for Olam Haba. So Moshe Rabbeinu's sin here, his major sin, was using the words Hariosa, but really Moshe Rabbeinu wasn't even for himself. That's the love. He felt for us the way we feel for ourselves. That's how much Rabbeinu's love for the Jewish people, how he wanted to suffer with us. He wanted to suffer along with us. But to use that expression for him, tasnished. Halavai, we should be on that madrega. Halavai, that we should care more about everybody else than we do about ourselves. Now, let's talk about some major ways to strengthen our emunah attitude, and that's through gratitude. The Sifsei Chaim brings down that it brings down the Chayvus Halavavas and the Shara Avodas Elokim. In the Makkah, the Medrash Rabbah says that your servitude to Hashem is commensurate with the degree that you appreciate. The more you appreciate, the more you're going to serve Hashem with tremendous fervor. If you appreciate things, that's how that's to that degree, you're going to be a servant of Hashem. He brings down something very interesting, Sifsei Chaim. He says, even the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach, the Noachide laws, we find that they are due to gratitude. Like if a Noachide wants to, respect their creator, it's commiserate with the degree of, I owe my creator everything. I owe to be a straightforward person and not to steal and not to do what's right in this world, for my creator. It's a branch of gratitude. Okay, but he says further that a person, a Torah Jew, is supposed to realize we have further signs. We had the whole Yetzias Mitzrayim, the whole show on a display for us. And when we went, Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim. It says, Asher Tzisicha me'eretz Mitzrayim mibeis avadim. I took you out of Mitzrayim from the house of slavery. Why? The Ibn Ezra says, you owe me slavery. You owe me servitude. That's the degree of gratitude you owe me, because I took you out of servitude. You owe me everything. So that's why Hashem says, okay, you people, I did more to. I touched you up a little bit more. You owe me now mitzvahs you don't even understand. Mitzvahs B'nai Noach are understandable, but some mitzvahs in the Torah, like shatnez, are not understandable. And you're supposed to do it because I gave you something that was beyond understanding, and I took you out of slavery. So you owe me your whole heart. He's not even asking much of us. He's asking us to enjoy life. He's asking to do everything, but just to serve Hashem with whatever we have. Rav Dessler says that it's impossible to have emunah. I mean, it's impossible to have emunah without being a giving person. And a sign of being a giving person is, just want to see where I wrote this. Okay, a sign of being a giving person is for a person to, is a person that sees other people. Justice says really all good and bad is based on giving and taking. A person that's a taker that feels entitled just sees what's owed to me. A person that's a giver, what can I do? What can I do? So he says a person that's grateful is a person that sees what has been given to him. He doesn't feel if things are owed to him. He feels he owes something back. He owes something back. That is a prerequisite, says Rav Dessler, to emunah, because what is emunah? He says emunah is seeing the other. A person can say a whole davening and not think of Hashem once. You say just say the words. The more so it's a good sideline to working on tefillah, is working on to what degree are you seeing Hashem? Are you seeing Hashem before you? Are you seeing I owe you, I owe you, I owe you? That's what we're supposed to be focused on. Now, it's not so easy to have, well, we're gonna wait, we'll do that in a minute. Now, he says that the more we appreciate, the more we're gonna do mitzvahs. Moshe Rabbeinu, says Rav Pam, was unbelievable. He 30 different psukim have Moshe arguing with Hashem, saying, I don't want to be the one to go to Mitzrayim, send Aaron, send somebody else. He argues with him. And then Hashem says, no, he finally convinces him, you are the one. You're the one, you have to go. You're not Aaron. I'm saying none of your arguments convinced me. You are the one that has to go down to Mitzrayim. But guess what Moshe does? He does one extra step some people aren't aware of. He goes and asks a blessing and permission from Yisro to go down to Mitzrayim. Now Hashem commanded you. Do you have to take that extra step? But he said, Yisro, he gave me, he sheltered me when I was running away, a fugitive. He gave me his daughter in marriage. I owe him so much. How can I not get his blessing and his permission to go down to Mitzrayim? Now you'd think Hashem's permission is enough, but this was the degree of hakaras hatov, of gratitude that Moshe Rabbeinu felt that he had to do that. Now the famous thing is Moshe did not, in the first 3 plagues, Moshe did not do as God commanded him to do. He was told, take your staff, hit the Nile, and there will be blood. There'll be frogs. And then hit the earth and there'll be keenan, there'll be lice. Now, in all 3 cases, you look at the verses, Aaron took the staff, not Moshe. Why did Aaron take the staff? Moshe felt these three inanimate objects saved my life. I was, as a baby, put in the Nile and saved in a basket. How could I bring myself to hit the Nile? He couldn't hit the sand, which had saved, he buried the mitzvah, the Egyptian that he killed. He buried him in the sand so he wouldn't have evidence against him. He says, how could I hit the sand? Hashem did not censure Moshe Rabbeinu. He felt this is part and parcel of doing the right thing. Here, Hashem commands you to do something and you don't do it totally. You don't do it because there's a part here of hakaras hatov. How can I do it? How can I do it? And God commanded him, but he felt that this was not a negation. He felt he had to do it this way. And he was right, because the gratitude he was supposed to have. Rav Wolbe tells us that we're taught this lesson with inanimate objects. We have it every Friday night with the challah. We have to cover the challah when we say Kiddush. Now, I've never in my life seen a challah with hurt feelings. I don't know, and if I worry about their feelings, I wouldn't eat them either. But the reason why we cover the challah is because challah, you are so much more important than wine. You are my everything. I never get tired of bread. If I got tired of bread, I would be much thinner today. Anyway, so the what's it called? So we're supposed to feel that this is we're so appreciative that we have to bring ourselves to cover the challah when we make kiddush, because how can we have the challah sitting there watching us give a bracha to something that's of less importance? But in any case, it's when we have inanimate objects we're dealing with, it's a whole new way of looking at life, to appreciate inanimate objects. Today, look at everybody, how people throw things out so easily. And, like the lack of appreciation of things, like garments. Everybody in the North America tears their pants. They're supposed to look cool. You're not appreciating a garment that gives you warmth and shelter and guards you against the rain, or the human body. The goyim are so much into tattoos today. Like it's mutilating the human body, which is so beautiful in its own. Any case, we're saying by inanimate objects that the main thing of a Parshas Tov does not depend on the person. It doesn't depend on the person. It depends on your reaction to the person, your feelings. You're supposed to feel, I have been benefited by this. It doesn't matter what their intention was. It doesn't matter if they did it for themselves. It doesn't matter why they did it. I benefited. I owe you something. That's it. Period. That's what Rav Dessler says. And there was something interesting in the mirror. I didn't quite understand the lashon of Rav Volba, but he said something like lula oats. I guess that means like, was it buttonholes? I don't know if that's buttonhole or the buttons being on properly, but whatever it is, he said if a boy in the mirror would like come to some degree sloppily dressed on his jacket, I think maybe the buttons were loose or something. That's what I'm wondering. He said the jacket would be taken away for them and they'd have to pay money to get it back. When he was in the Mir Yeshiva with Rav Yerucham Zatzal, that to teach us that, even clothing, to respect clothing, to have a proper respect for everything that we have. And that leads us to emunah. It helps us because the more we appreciate, the more we see Hashem is behind all of this and there's nothing to complain about, and we will take things in its proper vein. Now, just one second, I just want to quote you what Rav Dessler says here. Where is it? Okay. I can't find it, so I'm not gonna waste time on this. Any case, all right. So now it's not always easy to have a Parshas Tov. It's very hard. I remember that the Chasam Sofer says that if somebody insults you, you should know you must have done them a good turn. You must have done something good to somebody if they insult you. I remember reading once a column many years ago in the Hamodia. Somebody wrote in to Rabbi Dr. Twersky, Zechron Livracha. They wrote into him saying that they helped support their friend through medical school. And years later, when they both were married with children and everything, they found that this person like barely kept up with him, didn't keep up with him anymore. I taught converts. I taught almost 200 women for conversion. And I would say a handful keeps up with me, a handful. Why? Says, Rabbi Twersky said, they're embarrassed that they took from you. They remember themselves when they were, not so religious and not so knowledgeable. And you were like the one that the guru, whatever. And then afterwards, they don't want to feel that way. Now he's an MD, a major deity. So he doesn't want to feel like he once was, had to take from somebody. Right. People can't handle, thank you, Hamdvora. People can't handle being beholden. We don't like it. That's from a good thing in a way, but that's where we have to have some humility and forget what we want to feel. We have to be grateful. People don't want to feel grateful to their parents. People don't want to feel, grateful to somebody. Said, look, they're just doing it for themselves. They enjoyed having babies. They enjoyed, having a child to play with in the house. But, we're not supposed to, we're supposed to look at them like an animate object. I owe them something. Doesn't matter what their intention was. And that's not, and anything, it doesn't matter. I once said this, so I'll say it again here. I say this every once in a while because it's very beloved to me. Oh, I even found where I paid for this thing. It's Mem Zion. Okay. Anyway, so we find that it says like this. In Masechet Brachos, this is what Rav Dessler brings down. And here it is. Orech Tov Mahu Omer, a good guest. What does he say? Kama tirchos tarach balabayas bishvili. How much effort did the balabayas do for me? Kama basar hevi lefanai. How much meat did he bring to me? Kama yayin hevi lefanai. How much wine did he give me? Kama gluska os hevi lefanai. How many glasses did he bring me? V'kol masha tarach lo tarach ela bishvili. And everything he did was only for me. Orach Ra Mahu Amir, a bad guest. What does he say? Ma Tarach Balabayaseh. What did this host do for me? Pasach Chasachalti, ate one loaf of bread. The Chaticha Chasachalti, ate a little piece. Kosachas Shasisi, I drank one little cup. Everything Shatarach Balabayaseh, Lo Tarach El Bishvil Ishto Vanav. Everything he did was just for his wife and his sons. You know, a good guest always looks at the positive side because there isn't, and also because there is an unknown. This is my guess, but I saw once and I don't remember where I saw it. I once found the source and then I lost it again. But there is a Gemara that says that if somebody gives you beans, you owe him meat. And why? Why do you owe him meat? He just gave you beans. And the answer is what they did for you. You don't know all the thoughts behind it. You don't know how hard their day was. You don't know what they're thinking. This is a story. I always brought down many stories, but this is a story Rabbi Rivlin, she rest in peace, brought down. He used to go with Rabbi Moshe Feinstein everywhere. And one of the places he would go collecting, he was helping him in Mesivta Tiferes Yerushalayim in his day. And they walked up 3 flights of stairs. Rabbi Moshe was 75 years old. They walked up 3 flights of stairs and knocked on someone's door for a collection for the yeshiva. What happened? When they made the collection, the woman also gave him a tea, and they got a nice check. And Rabbi Moshe thanked him for the check. He went downstairs. He tells Rabbi Rivlin, "We have to go back up the 3 flights. I never said thank you for the tea." Rabbi Rivlin said, "Can't you use the phone?" Can't you use the phone? And Moshe, we have to remember, Moshe Feinstein did not waste his time. That's 3 flights more upstairs. It's not like his cardiologist or his physiotherapist said he has to do 3 more flights of stairs. He didn't do his quota for the day. He says, "No, I have to go up personally and thank her for the tea." And I always wondered, like, why would he do such a thing? And it seems it's because this person gives you beans. It's really, they deserve meat. You don't know the kavanah. She's thinking, I'm serving the gadol hador. I'm giving them my best glass. I washed the glass extra carefully this time. Whatever she did, there's more to tea than tea. There's more to meat than meat. And especially when human effort is involved. We don't know their thoughts. We don't know their thoughts. We don't know what they're thinking. So we owe them so much because there's such a quote, whatever you say, a variable there of things that they intended that we don't understand. We don't understand, so we have to assume that they did tremendous for me. We have to assume that. And also we have to know, look how I am benefited. We have to focus not on what your intention was. It's none of our darn business what your intention was. My intention is, look how benefited I am and what I owe. Many stories of Gedolim. Okay, we'll have to ask questions after, okay? Because I get distracted. Sorry. Yes, but I can answer you short. Entitlement is the opposite of hakaras hatov. And we are living in the age of entitlement. People in the States, at least, getting checks for sitting and lounging all day just because they're living in the time of Corona. If everybody, entitlement is 100% the opposite of hakaras hatov. We're supposed to feel, what do I owe you, not a what do you owe me. That's the Jew's attitude. That's the attitude of gratitude. Now we find that that's how we're supposed to look. They are always these inanimate things. Now, I don't want to spend too much of your time here. We're almost ending. Almost. Okay. So that's one thing. Gratitude is a very important attitude to adapt. Very important. Another thing was mekotzer ruach, not thinking, contemplating. When Mesil Sisharm says the prime thing of the Yetzer Hara is to keep a person busy so they won't have time to think. When people think, see, Paro had loads of time to think, but with the Kal V'chomer, with the Kotzer Ruach is, they're saying Bnei Yisrael were subjugated to hard work, so they have no time to contemplate what Hashem has done for them. So how can Paro, who never even tries to think, despite no hard work, how is he going to think about me? Rabbi Yisrael Salanter was once asked, a man said to him, I only have 15 minutes a day spare time. Should I learn Musar or should I learn Gemara? Rabbi Yisrael Salanter says, learn Musar, and then you'll find time for Gemara. If we have time to contemplate what we're doing with our lives and what we could do better, how we can improve ourselves, We'll find time for everything and everybody. But if we don't think about how am I doing in this world, what do I need to improve on? If we don't work on our mitos, which we're here in the world for, the whole purpose in the world, says the Vilna Gaon and the Rambam, is shviras hamidos. And the Vilna Gaon says, why should you be alive if you don't work on your mitos? So we have to work on the meat of gratitude. We have to work on the meat of thought, thinking. The Jews didn't think about what they were doing right or wrong. Very important. Rav Mordechai Miller Zatzal tells us, after so many makos, Paro does not try to think. And he says, when you don't think, that's really the basis for avodah zarah. That the unwillingness of a person to go to the root cause of something is the basis for avodah zarah. Because who believes that some idol that I can hold in my hands is going to save my life? That's foolish. Everybody knows down deep that it's either self-service. That's, some people say they call avodah zarah really self-service. Avodah zarah, you're not serving Hashem, you're serving another, which is yourself, because I want this, I want that, little Getchka, please bring me my supper, bring me my breakfast, whatever. But besides the shopping list, there's another idea. The logical conclusion of a person thinks to the end, here Paro every day went to the bathroom, snuck out to go to the Nile, and then later in the day he's saying, Li Ori, Ani Asitu. I am the god of the Nile. I made everything. And here he has to sneak out to go to the bathroom every day. How can you hold two thoughts in your mind simultaneously? Shlomo Melech tells us, Shemayim larom va'aretz la'omek, b'leiv malachim en cheker. He says, just like there's the heavens so high and earth is so low, he says the heart of a person we can't understand the heart of a person. We have so many conflicts. We believe and yet we don't believe. The Jews believed earlier when they were told by Moshe, I'm going to take you out of Mitzrayim. Once they couldn't think anymore, they couldn't believe anymore. But also, the Jews believed earlier, but then Paro couldn't give them a chance to think. They couldn't go to the source of everything. They couldn't remember there's an Abish there. They had no time to think. There were 3 stages, says the Rambam. There was Dor Enosh, the generation of Enosh before Noah. They respected nature as agents of God. Beautiful trees, like we're supposed to respect them, but we have to keep it in perspective. There's nothing wrong with that. They did no sins per se, but they respected the stars and the sky and the moon and all the studies of everything. The second generation after them, people thought that natural forces have individual power. I don't think we're so far from that, by the way. We always think that, he did it to me. Hashem did it through this person. Nobody has power over you, only Hashem. That's it. Anything that happens to us that day, can't be afraid of the banker, the insurance man, or anybody. It's only Hashem that we have to be afraid of, or even Naftali Bennett. And the third level is self-sufficiency. The 2 generations already after Enosh, not only did they regard the natural forces as powerful, but then they thought there's no Hashem at all. Then they went to idolatry. It all comes from a lack of thought, says the Miller. So, once they started thinking, and the Sforno says, Lo nasnu leiv lehisponein. They didn't take thought. They didn't take time to think, to conclude, to contemplate, why was this happening to us? So thinking is so important. We have to think. We have to employ emunah. We have to realize from where everything is. And that, otherwise it's avodah zarah. You're not coming to the natural conclusions. We have to use our habit, the attitude of gratitude. That's going to take us out of the mire and make us more positive. And we won't be saying lama hayre osali. We have to realize that olam hazeh is temporary. It's going to lead us only to olam haba. And that also we have to, it causes us to have a cheshbon and nefesh, makes us think. It makes us better people. And everything, we have to internalize the mood. It doesn't come easy. It comes with great thought, contemplation, looking at creation, remembering all the good Hashem gives to us. Gratitude and contemplation are the 2 main efforts we need to put to have emunah. I'll just end off with an amazing story, 2 stories actually. Rav Fishel Schachter says he heard a story about a woman, a survivor of the Holocaust, who went to many doctors who told her she was unable to have children. And she finally went to the top doctor specialist in downtown Manhattan, the big wig, biggest of the big, the major deity. She went to him and he looked at all her forms and he says, lady, there's no way on earth that you can have a child. So she comes out of there so broken. And here's a survivor, and they were hoping to continue their progeny, their lives. And she just didn't know what to do. She was so beside her. So she got on the bus to go home. She says, why should I go home? What's my life worth? So she's on the bus and she loses herself in thought. She's so broken, she can't even get off the bus. Meanwhile, the bus driver ends his shift with all the people. And he sees this lady sitting in the back. He says, lady, why aren't you getting off the bus? She says, I just went to the doctor and he told me that I have no hope of having children. He says, lady, I have to drive this bus. He said, you know what I mean? He said, you got to go on with your life. The show has to go on. Like I've seen people before, there's bad news in life, but you got to go on. And she felt that was Hashem talking to her. So she finally got off the bus, and Official Schechter says she had a baby boy. And how does he know? Because it was his mother. Anyways, so that's one amazing story that we know that you can never give up and you never know what's going to be. Another story is these are all stories in this new book that my children gave me called Reaching Higher, just came out. Rabbi, what's his name? Binyamin Przansky. Anyways, there's another story in there about Rav Avram Brog, Yisrael Brog from Cleveland, who's a tremendous Baal Bitachon. And he said that he was diagnosed, I don't know exactly with what, I'm not sure, but whatever it was pretty severe. They told him, we're going to give you treatment, but you're going to have tremendous hair loss. And the hair that's going to remain is going to be brittle. And you're going to have all these creams and ointments to keep it soft. And you won't be able to speak. And if you are, it won't be for long periods of time. So he is a tremendous Baal Bitachon, and he says, and I tell you, it's God is in charge of me, not you. He said this right to the doctor. God is in charge of me right now. And if I want, I'm not going to lose my hair. And if God wants it, I'm not going to have brittle hair, and I am going to be able to speak. And he went to the doctors. He had this procedure done, a surgery, I believe, of some sort. None of those things happened to him at all because he believed in it. And not only that, on Shavuos night, he gave shiurim all night. And the doctors were like astounded. But we have to believe that there's only one doctor in this world, and that's Ribbono Shel Olam, and that he can do anything. And the more we have emunah, the more we'll give our lives more meaning, more simcha, more everything. And even when you believe in something, you're giving it a possibility. Like we said last week, when you believe in something, you're giving it a possibility to happen. So let's take the high road and believe in all the right things. I thank you for listening. Mwah, to all of you, and have yourselves an amazing week. And we want to thank, we have Elisheva Shields is our new moderator. We have to thank her for helping us with everything that she's doing. She has taken this upon herself. I hope she's not going to regret it. But I really thank her very much from the bottom of my heart. And I want to thank all of you and wish you all the very best. Okay, so I guess now we can stop the recording and we can unmute.